Here I have recreated a typical hunting scene. You can see a deer target. It is exactly 178 meters away. I used a rangefinder to measure the distance. Next, I set my BDC Plus to exactly this distance so the bullet drop is compensated and I can keep the target in my crosshairs without a problem. There are a few things to note for a system like the BDC Plus to work properly. Let's start on our long-distance shot range. In the background, you can see targets set up at 100 meters, 200 meters and 300 meters. The distances are clear. With the rifle zeroed at 100 meters, what we don't know is how far our bullet will drop at 200 or 300 meters. And even if we knew that our projectile will drop 39 centimeters over 300 meters, what does this look like on a target? ZEISS offers the BDC for just this situation. BDC stands for Bullet Drop Compensator. I have here a ZEISS Victory HT 2.5 to 10 by 50 with BDC Plus for azimuth and elevation. By simply turning it, I can compensate for the fall of shot at long ranges, meaning that no matter how far away something is, I am always on target. An accurate shot at long distances is usually a challenge. With our system, you don't need to shoot at the sky or use any kind of holdover. Just stay on target. ZEISS offers the BDC Plus and BDC. What they do is identical. I take my rifle and zero it at 100 meters. This is because the ballistic curves have been calculated at an optimum 100 meters. Then I select the right ring or sticker, turn it 4 clicks and zero my desired sight-in distance. The advantage here is that if the target is further away than my sight-in distance, I can still extend the ballistic curve and compensate for the bullet drop. What is the difference between the BDC and the BDC Plus? This is the BDC. The 5 ballistic curves are mounted on the outside using stickers. This is the BDC Plus. At first glance, new design, but considerably more ergonomic with rubber armouring. When my hands shake with cold, even when it rains, I always have a good grip. The real technical advance is that it uses 9 rings, in other words, 9 ballistic curves. Because I have 9 curves instead of 5, I can be more accurate. The shot is much more precise. The 9 rings cover virtually any hunting caliber, from a .270 Weatherby that is fast with little bullet drop at near ranges to the heavy and slow 9.3 by 62.
Angefangen bei einer .270 Weatherby, die super rasant ist mit wenig Geschossabfall, bis hin zur dicken, langsamen 9.362.
I now have to determine which ballistic curve works with my caliber. This is easy. I go to our website, which offers a BDC calculator. I download it. Then I enter the riflescope I am using, the caliber, the manufacturer and the load. It shows me which ring to use. A 300 Win Mag, for example, drops much less at 300 meters than an 8 by 57. We offer various ballistic curves. Now, here's a question. With so many different calibers, how can they all be covered with just a few curves? The principle is simple. A ballistic curve permits shots that are 3 to 4 centimeters too high or too low. All calibers that fit in this zone are included in this curve. One ballistic curve covers multiple calibers. In hunting, a high or low shot of 3 to 4 centimeters is irrelevant. With the BDC Plus online calculator, I find out that I need ring 8 for my new rifle. Before zeroing it, I must remove the BDC. I will now show you how to do that. Using an ordinary screwdriver, hold the cap with 2 fingers and unscrew the screw. There is a simple reason for holding the cap. There is a spring below it and you want to stop the system from pinging away. I hold it down. I now press the inside of the BDC Plus and remove the outer ring. What you see here is a pin, and here is another pin. These pins ensure that we can zero the system. However, when zeroing, I don't want the pins to bump into each other. I want to correct the high and low shot if necessary. In other words, I zero the rifle, and if corrections are necessary, I simply set the pins on the opposite sides to each other, and then I can click to the left and right. I have now zeroed my weapon. I would like to call this zeroing the system. This means this pin and this pin block the system in a certain direction. I want the system to block at 1 or 100 meters. This means that I can't turn it to less than the 100 meters mark. However, I have to remember the following. This pin here must be able to stop to the right of this pin so that they touch. The advantage of this is that I can turn the BDC to 200 or 300 meters, and when I return to the start, I am right at 100 meters. That is my zero. There is a simple reason for this. If I forget to reset the BDC and sit out waiting for game in the dark, I don't have to use a flashlight to see where the 1 is. I just turn it counterclockwise until it stops. I hit 1 and I am at 100 meters. Now I put everything back and make sure that the pins are touching so that I can turn it clockwise upwards later when I want to. And when I turn it back to the stop, I'm at 100. I then put the outer BDC back on. The scale right now is irrelevant. I'll get to the ballistic rings in a minute. With the spring back in place, there is another little thing to remember. The spring should always be positioned so that it doesn't jam at the top, and the BDC can lock smoothly. Everything looks good. Spring back in place. Only now do I press it back in place with 2 fingers and tighten the screw with my left or right hand. Great, all set. I now hold the BDC with my left hand and turn the upper ring towards the top. Remove the rubber armouring and the linear ring that is mounted at the beginning. Then replace it with the correct ballistic ring that I determined earlier with my BDC calculator. Locking it is not important right now. When putting the rubber armouring back in place, it is important to remember that there is a small spring here and a small groove in the back where everything fits together. The spring should not turn. I then put the cap back on, screw everything together, but I don't tighten it because I can now easily lock the ring in position. I now ensure that the 1 perfectly aligns with the marking on the targeting optics when the weapon is zeroed, like it is now. I tighten the cap. Now I can do the following. I can set the system for 200 meters, for 300 meters, and if I forget where I left off, just turn everything back to the stop, let go, and I am at 100 meters. Successful shots at long distances require a lot of practice, shooting at 300 meters for example. What I generally try to do when practicing is to set things up as if I were on a hunt. I have my bench rest, my technical equipment. I try to set up everything as I might encounter it out in the field. Even a minor mistake at 100 meters can have a big effect. Just a simple shift in the point of impact caused by holding the weapon wrong, pulling on the trigger, or being annoyed by mosquitoes can make a big difference. Realistic training has the advantage of improving my confidence and trust in my equipment. This means that when I go out on a hunt, I know exactly at which distances I can shoot without a problem, and where I don't even need to try. This is something that I can easily check on the shooting range. If I know that I can get great results at 200 meters, then I know I will also be able to shoot well in the field. So I have zeroed my weapon at 100 meters, found the right ring for the BDC Plus, and will now test everything at 200 meters and 300 meters. I load the rifle, set the BDC Plus to 2 for 200 meters, take my first shot, and check that everything works. The shot lands within the small 2x2 square. Now I'll take a couple more shots to see if I can get a nice group, to see that the system repeats, to see if I am doing everything right with my shot.
Setze ich noch 2 weitere Schüsse drauf und schau, ob wir eine saubere Gruppe hinkriegen.
The group sits at 200 meters. It might be 2 to 2.5 centimeters too high, but before I lower the BDC with a click to correct that, I'll check the system at 300 meters, because the result at 200 meters was good. Now let's see what happens at 300 meters. I set the BDC to 3 for 300 meters and take a test shot. The group at 300 meters is good, 5 centimeters in diameter, nicely in the middle. This means the ballistic ring I used perfectly compensates for this caliber's bullet drop. 2.5 centimeters too high at 200 meters is just fine. I think it is safe to say that the weapon is set, the optics are perfectly zeroed, and it's time to head out into the field. This is something we repeatedly encounter in our seminars. Our customers zero their rifles perfectly. Look for the right ring, head out to a long-distance range, shoot tight groups at 200 and 300 meters. However, both groups are too low. There are lots of reasons for this. Probably the most common reason is that the ballistic rings we use are based on the data from the manufacturer of the ammunition. They use test barrels for their data. This is a normal rifle. It has a shorter barrel than a test barrel, so I lose not only speed, but also energy, and my bullet drop is more pronounced. This is not a problem. Do the following. Remove the ballistic ring and replace it with the linear ring. The advantage here is that I can now directly read how many clicks I need to make the correction at different distances. I then take my zeroed rifle, shoot a tight group at 200 meters and correct the height so that the group sits in the middle. I repeat this for 300 meters. On a piece of paper, I jot down the number of clicks I made to correct the various distances. I then get out my BDC manual. When I look inside, I can see a chart with the different ballistic rings. This shows what the ring simulates for the bullet drop at various distances and how many clicks are needed. I then compare this with my notes. I select the ring that fits best, mount it on the BDC Plus, take a few control shots at 200 and 300 meters, and then adjust the system. The BDC Plus is now zeroed. We have found the right ballistic curve, determined the ring based on this, mounted it, and taken a few test shots at 200 and 300 meters. I am now prepared for any conceivable situation on a hunt. Anyone interested in practicing with us at distances of 300, 450 or even 600 meters can find what's on offer for the summer and all dates on the website of the ZEISS Training Academy.